and stay at a hotel across the street is the beach. I go on the beach to see the sunset. You know, I just get there a few hours earlier. All of a sudden, there's a big group from the church doing Christmas carols. And then I go, wow, that was weird. And then halfway while I'm there, I'm walking into town. I go, what's that? It's got a dreidel over there. It was the I don't know, what do you call it thing? That thing out. Well,
That's like a dreidel.
Yeah. And it was made up to be a dreidel. I go there, there was chairs everywhere, and it was the Chabad of Venice celebration for the last day of Hanukkah.
In Miami?
No, it was in Venice,
Oh, Venice.
Florida. So I'm like, oh, I saw him there. I start talking to people. The rabbi comes up to me, and I'm telling him I'm a believer. And he goes, well, but you're Jewish. You know, we're here to repair the world. And I said, I was bar mitzvah.
Repair the world.
He goes, yeah, it's the Tikkun Olam. And he goes, did you, your bar mitzvah and did the tefillin? I go, no, I didn't do the tefillin. And he rips out his tefillin. Here I am getting it wrapped about my arm.
Does he have a GoPro on your head?
Oh yeah, he goes, I even have a selfie of it. He said, let's take a selfie. So I go, you know, the first day is Christian, you know, songs, and then midway through, the tefillin, I mean, Christian Jewish.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Hey, Happy New Year!
Oh, wait a minute.
We've been live.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Oh,
Who
no.
said that there's no such thing as coincidence with God?
There's
When
no-
God
there's
acts
divine
anonymously.
appointment.
There's
Yeah.
zero coincidence.
All right, anyway, I guess we should welcome everybody, Mark.
All right.
Yeah. Welcome to Hijacked.
New hairdo, sorry, but it looks good.
I've been getting compliments all day, every day. Thank
Really?
you, Dr. Bauman. Yes.
All right.
Welcome to Hijacked Life Live, where we believe that God rescues the dreams that have been shattered by the cruelties and injustices of life, a.k.a. we are the other view. And Dr. Weiss, you look great with the filling on.
Oh, look at you. Wow.
The rabbis did that every day when I was in
That
Israel on the
actually
bus.
looks like you've got a mohawk.
Yeah, they're a little Mexican now.
So, anyway, today we are going to look at the book, the Bible, the how-to for being financially responsible in tough economic times, and building wealth with a hope and a future.
All right, everybody needs that, so you can take a minute to share, because there's some interesting insight today.
Yeah, there is. So, share it, invite somebody to join us, and because we're going to talk about what you're going to face in 2026, right? So let me introduce the team. All the way to my left is Dr. Weiss, who is supposed to be retired, but still does emergency surgeries and all that kind of stuff, right? What are you doing? You're studying some messianic...
Well, right now I'll be taking a class this spring at Biola University. That's out of Talbot, out of Feinberg Center of Messianic Studies. They're kind of all grouped together. Theology course plus taking Hebrew too.
Yeah. Then on my left, you know Martino Cartier. He is a salon celebrity and everything else.
Good day.
Joel, never saw your new
Oh, really?
salon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been years since I've
That's
been
crazy.
here.
Yeah.
Probably changed a lot, huh?
Yeah, it looks good.
And the zoo, you have all kinds of new animals. Every day you get something new, right?
No, we're max capacity.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
And then all the way on my right is our son, Joel. He is our guest today. I will say this humbly, but he's a financial genius, and so we'll give him a chance to just rattle on a little later on today. But anyway, let's get rolling. So, God's canopy. God has a canopy. I've taught this for years, and I think it doesn't change. I used to call it radio station WTBG. Work, tie, budget, and give the right place. And if somebody will work, and I was thinking about this. Somebody we were talking to the other day, and I said, listen, I don't know a single person that's successful that doesn't work at least 65 hours a week. You know, these people who think they can work 20 hours a week and be successful. And then what happens is the people who work 20 hours a week and think they're going to be successful take over their parents' business, and they never started on the bottom. And what? 5 years later, the business is gone because they don't understand what it takes. But anyway, so let's start. 6 days thou shalt labor.
Exodus 29 through 11. 6 days you shall labor, and you shall do your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, or your son, or your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, or your livestock. I didn't know the livestock. Wow. Oh, boy.
Or a sojourner, that's, the person you hire.
Yeah. who is within your gates? For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy.
All right. Any thoughts? Doc, start with you.
Yeah, so I think Sabbath is a little misunderstood between Judaism and Christianity. So the Hebrew Sabbath is a mitzvah. It's one of the 10 Commandments. So it's observed from sunset Friday to sunset Saturday, and derived its name Shabbat, meaning rest. And it recalls God's creation of the world in 6 days, with the seventh day being a day of rest. In Christian tradition, the Sabbath observance is not a mitzvah, but it is also important. Jesus and the early disciples initially observed the Jewish Sabbath. However, Christians eventually shifted to the worshiping on Sunday, where it was officially designated a day of rest. And, just as one should take that Sabbath day, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, seriously, they should also take the days of work seriously as well.
Yeah. So what do you feel about that, the Sabbath? I mean, some people feel that there was never, the Sabbath was never released from us. In other words, we have to have a Sabbath.
Well, I mean,
It doesn't have to be Friday to Saturday, but people feel like if you don't have a Sabbath, then it'll catch up to you.
but again, the Sabbath was Old Testament. It was part of the Jewish law, the law of
Well, that's
Moses.
what I'm asking.
So really, when Christ came, that law is no more.
Christ released us from
He
that.
released it from the Mosaic
He
law,
was-
and also the law of Christ. So, I mean, I think it's like anything else. If you look at the 10 Commandments, honor your mother and father. You don't have to do that anymore. It's not a commandment, but it's morally what you should do. So I think in application, I think that there's nothing wrong with taking that Sabbath. I think it's a good thing to take a day off from all the stresses of the world and glorify God for everything you've had the 6 days prior.
Your thoughts, Martin?
Well, I think Jesus released us from what we just read because he picked wheat, and somebody tried to rebuke him about it, or he healed somebody on the Sabbath, and they said you shouldn't do this on the Sabbath. And I think physically it's good for us, but I don't think it's a law from God.
What do you
Not
think?
anymore.
I agree with Martino and Doc. I believe Jesus released us from it. I mean, I work 20 hours a day, 6 days a week, and then I work at least a half a day Sunday, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I believe that. I mean, we're told not to forsake the assembly of the righteous. I mean, believing, attending, tithing, serving, right? So take time to do that. And a day off is healthy, mentally, emotionally, and physically, from anything. But I don't believe we're bound by that.
I probably disagree with all three of you, which is fine. If you remember, Paul said, don't let anybody judge you regarding the Sabbath or a new moon. But he didn't say we shouldn't take it. And I just personally feel that if you don't take a Sabbath, God will take it from you. That sooner or later your health's going to mentally, emotionally, and
That's
physically.
different than saying we are bound by
No,
it.
I agree. But I'm just saying, just like eating, the Lord said we can eat anything we want, right? But we know the digestive system works pork and
Right.
crawfish and all that stuff differently than if we eat clean meat.
Well, it's just like honor your mother and
Well,
father.
I think we all said the same thing. It's good for us.
Yeah.
It's healthy for us.
Well,
But we're not bound by it.
Right.
Right.
Because Jesus fulfilled the law in his death. All right, so the second W, that's work. And it is therapeutic,
Yeah.
clearly.
You don't have to do the same thing
Right.
7 days a week, but yeah.
Well, that's what Jack Kyle said. He said that rest is doing something you normally don't do.
It's therapeutic if it depends what you're doing for work. I had 2 kids running around the salon yesterday. I almost had a stroke. And I told them to knock it off 3 times. And they think the parents would have said something. I finally told them they had to leave. It was so stressful. I was a stroke out in the salon. The clients were going to stroke out. So I don't know if that was.
Boy, yesterday, the moon was the moon. Yesterday, a lot of bad stuff happened.
I just know I've worked with a lot of thousands of people like you guys have as well, all of us, and I'm sure you guys can relate in that I have never worked with, partnered with, dealt with a man who didn't work that was healthy. I mean, I've refused trust fund babies with hundreds of millions of dollars because they wouldn't work, and people just aren't. Men, I'm not speaking for women, but men are not mentally or emotionally healthy if they're not working. And that leads into physically as well.
Well, yeah, they feel
Yeah.
almost like a loser. I hate
Right.
to use that word, but I know people that have lost their job that was successful and fell into depression, as
Yeah.
Joel said, and never got out of it.
Hey, listen,
No.
during the Great Depression, it wasn't women jumping out of windows, it was men.
Yeah, that's true.
And they say a woman draws her self-worth from her relationships, but a man draws his self-worth by what he achieves.
Yeah, well, many rich people have killed themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta work, man.
Well, let's look at the second one. So work, W, the T is the tithe. So, Doc, you want to read it?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic.
It is.
Will man rob God? Yet you are, what verse is it? This is...
It's the Malachi 3,
Malachi
and you're
3.
starting with verse 8.
Will man rob God? Yet you are robbing me. But you say, how have we robbed you? In your tithes and contributions. You are cursed with a curse, for you are robbing me, the whole nation of you. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and thereby put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts. If I will not open the windows of heaven for you, and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more need, I will rebuke the devourer for you, so that it will not destroy the fruits of your soil, and your vine in the field shall not fail to bear, says the Lord of hosts. Then all nations will call you blessed, for you will be a land of delight, says the Lord of hosts.
All right, start with you, Joel. Your thoughts on the tithe?
My thoughts on the tithe? Boy, we could be here all year. I mean, I talk about, I'll try to wrap it up. I talk about this every day, man, live, and people call and say, oh, you convicted me, man, I got to start tithing. So, listen, I believe if you want to know somebody's heart, all you got to do is, well, anything in the world, follow the money. That's it. So you want to know somebody's heart, you follow the money. And, you know, I don't pretend to judge hearts, but you know, I tell people, you show me your statements, and I'll tell you where your heart is. You can call yourself a Christian all day, but if you make $100, and you're not jumping for joy to give God at least 10, then something's wrong. Your heart doesn't belong to Him, you know, and you have idols. So if you're putting your wife, your kids, your business, or anything else before God, then that's an idol. So I think it's all His anyway, you know, and the reason that He gives it to us is twofold. You know, we're to be rivers, not reservoirs. And I believe that number one, it's for the furtherance of the gospel. Because as a believer, we know that the number one thing on God's heart at all times is that He's not willing that any should perish. Mm-hmm. And so how can you make money and not want to use that to get the gospel out there? Because the only currency that matters in the end is souls. And so that's money you could be giving, knowing that people are giving their life to Christ and they're not going to burn in hell for all eternity. You know, they'll be with Jesus. And so I think that's the first part of it. And the second is we're commanded to take care of, you know, the widow, the orphan, the fatherless, the less fortunate, and those who can't fend for themselves. And so I believe the only reason God gives us money is so that we can accomplish those two objectives. And I believe the more we do that, the more He gives us. Because He can trust us. He who is faithful in little is given much to do even more. So that's my
Good.
take on it.
Martino?
Well, there's no way God's going to bless your finances if you're not blessing others. And it may look like, you know, your finances are blessed, but eventually it will crash and burn. The other thing I think is that people don't realize that churches do need money to survive.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time. Somebody at our own church said to me not long ago that they got this small inheritance and they were going to give their 10% to Wigs and Wishes because the church doesn't need the money. I was just stopped in my tracks because how do you think the church pays the electric bill? How do you think it pays the insurance? How do you think it pays the heating? How do you think it pays the landscaping? And that's just the backbone. What about what it's really meant to do? Is that, as Joel said, minister to the widows, those with drug addiction, and everything from A to Z. The church can't do it without funds. I mean, Jesus said many times to the disciples, you know, we don't have any money and we need to do this. You can't do anything without money, and that includes a church. So if you're not furthering the kingdom by honoring what God has given you, you're really not walking the Christian walk.
I remember Paul Shudo.
Oh, I remember.
I like Paul. He was funny, but he said, "Listen, if you don't give God the 10%, He'll get it one way or another." And I always thought, boy, you're absolutely right. You know, I don't know. I grew up. My dad just taught us. If he gave us $1 or 10 cents was God. I never even thought about it. I never looked at it as a bill. I looked at it as an investment.
Well, if you look at it as a bill, it doesn't work that way.
No.
Because the Bible clearly states that God loves a cheerful giver.
Yes, and also remember, it says He'll rebuke the devourer. So I mean, that you get $65,000, 65,000 miles on your car tires instead of 30. There's all kinds of ways God stretches your money, but look at what He says. Will a man rob God? And I believe if a person doesn't tithe, and we can go into this whole thing because people say, oh, the Bible says put aside at the beginning of the week what your heart so desires and all that kind of thing. Well, that was talking about your offering. That wasn't talking about your tithe.
Right.
That was extra money that people put away. But I'm just saying, I've just learned you can't outgive God. Bottom line. And if grace supersedes, as we talked about in terms of work and the Sabbath, if grace supersedes the law, then we start at 10%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the law says 10%. Well, if I'm walking in grace, I'm starting there. So I just don't believe you can ever outgive God. Listen, my wife and I have from day one, I remember when I got a job at Mount Pleasant Church and Gene Huber hired me, and I mean, I promised God I was going to give him 15%. You know, that's a long time story on my first job. And Gene says to me, what are you doing? You're giving too much to the church. He says, how are you going to pay your bills? Right? He said to me, and I just laughed, and I says, I'm not worried about it. I said, Dr. Huber, listen, I can't outgive God. And I remember Lenny Smith saying, if you want to make $200,000 a year, give God 20. If you want to make $300,000 a year, give God 30. Because what you plant, you harvest. What you sow, you reap. And you know that, Martin.
100%.
Look, and then we're not even talking about almsgiving. That's when your left hand doesn't know what your right hand does.
Hey, listen, you could give 90% to God and live off that 10, whether you could afford it or not, and He's still going to pay your bills, and He's going to give you far more next time,
Yeah, He will.
because He'll know you'll give the 90, and then you'll be living off a little more, but it'll still be 10%, and He'll keep giving you more.
Clear examples, right? We went through hell with this property, and there's still, I don't believe in purgatory, but we've left hell, we're now in purgatory. close to being out of it.
Moving on up.
Moving on up. But in the midst of that storm, when all that chaos was going on, there were people that I had to get to do, like an engineer study. That was a waste that I didn't really need to do, but because of this nonsense we were dealing with. And, $12,000. And the guy said, this is crazy. I'm not even going to charge you for this. I can't tell you how many times that happened. Well, that's part of what got the giving back. That's part of the, God says He'll give it to you pressed down, shaken together, and running over. That's part of the pressed down.
I have a comment on this. I agree with what we give for, but from a biblical standpoint, that's kind of it's the New Testament reinterpreting the Old Testament, and that's something we're not supposed to do. So I have issues with churches that tell their congregations to give 10%. 10% is the tithing was a practice of giving a tenth of one's income or property as an offering to God. It was an ancient custom found among many nations of the ancient world. It's Old Testament, not New Testament.
Okay, stop.
I'm not done yet. This is important.
It's pre-Old Testament.
You're reinterpreting the Old Testament, which you can't do. The Old Testament gives revelation to the New Testament. You can't take the New and reinterpret the Old.
Finish.
Under Mosaic law, it served both practical and instructional purposes. It supported the Levitical priesthood. They had no tribal inheritance. They taught Israel to fear the Lord by reminding them that agricultural prosperity was God's gift. The law specified that tithes would include seeds, fruits, animals, with the Levites receiving a portion to support their work in the tabernacle. Every third year, the whole tithe was given to the Levites. And socially disadvantaged groups like orphans, widows, aliens, as a form of charity. Importantly, prophets emphasized that tithing was not a mechanical act, but should be motivated by the love for God and people with potential to prompt divine blessing. While there is no specific New Testament mandate for Christians to give exactly 10%, the fundamental principle of supporting ministry remains. Believers are encouraged to give as they feel, led by the Spirit. 1 penny given from the heart is worth more than $1 million given to
That is correct.
people next door.
That is
That is
correct.
And when you're telling people that if they give $100,000, they'll get $90,000 back, now you're entering a works
Okay.
attitude.
But here, what we have.
Where's it say that in the New
This is
Testament?
what
That's
I'm
I
going to
wanna
get
know.
there.
God
So-
said, test me.
Yes.
I just want to know what
No,
you
in the
think.
If
New
you
Testament-
test him, you'll find out.
Matthew 23,
Exactly.
23.
Where? Where does it
Jesus
say
said,
10%?
and
He told the
Okay,
Pharisees
just
to
give
keep
me one
tithing
second.
too, yeah.
So the tithe was, and then we'll move on because we have more to do.
Right.
The tithe was, the tithe was commissioned before the law
In the Old Testament.
in the Old Testament. It was commanded during the law.
During the Old Testament.
No, I'm sorry. It was commissioned before the law, commanded in the law. It was commended by Christ in Matthew 20:23, where he said, "This is what you ought to do,"
What to do.
and not to negate, as Joel said, tenderness, kindness, so forth.
Right,
you will.
right. No, I don't have a problem with
And
power,
then wait a
but
minute. And then in
before.
Hebrews, it's continued. Because he refers to this as an eternal principle. If
Eternal
giving God
principle
what
of
is his.
giving from the heart.
Yes, which starts at 10%.
There is no. I don't know.
Yes,
Where's
there
it
is.
say- Where's it say
That
10%?
penny, that penny only matters if it's your last penny.
Well,
Then it matters, all right? If you got
people
plenty
have
of
a-
pennies
I
and you give
understand
one,
that.
it
Where
don't
does it
mean
say
anything.
10%
Well,
of the investment?
because he says this is what you ought to do. You tithe on the mint, the
Ought
dill,
to.
the cumin.
Ought to
and
do.
ought to. Well,
But it's
what's
not a
that?
commandment.
Well, come on. Anyway, let's
Okay,
move on.
thank you.
But anyway, you guys got a good. That's
Hey,
what
who thinks
I feel like
ought-
throwing Abby Phillips
Who
right now.
Let us know if you think ought is a command.
All
I'm
right.
curious.
Yeah, okay. So now we're going to talk about the budget, all right? Because we said work, tithe, budget. You know, this is the only thing I'm going to say, Doc, and I understand that. And I know your argument. I've heard it a million times.
Sure, I know, and I've heard your side.
And you've heard my side. All I'm going to say is I don't know of a single person, whether they're saved or unsaved, that isn't blessed when they give 10%.
Oh no, give anything. You give anything, you're blessed.
Yeah,
really.
Anyway, Joe, let's talk about the tithe. I mean, the budget.
All right, from the book. Proverbs 27, verses 23 through 27. Know well the condition of your flocks. Give attention to your herds. For riches do not last forever. And does a crown endure to all generations? Good Lord, Dad, what translation is this?
Keep it real.
When the grass is gone and new growth appears, and the vegetation of the mountains is gathered, the lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of a field. There will be enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and maintenance for your girls. And Luke 14, 28 through 30 tells us, for which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost?
Me.
Oh, that's good, Martin.
We live and learn, right? Whether he has enough to complete it. Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish.
Okay, your thoughts on a budget, Doc. We'll start with you.
Well, building 2 veterinary hospitals from scratch, budgeting is extremely important. It's protective. It allows you. It sets up barriers. It lets you decide how and where to distribute your money smartly and not wastefully. And it takes a lot of prayer to stay on track. Budgets are a nightmare. I hated doing them. I probably never followed them.
I don't think anybody ever
And
can.
got myself in trouble a bunch of times, but at least it's something that you can look back on and say, well, why am I getting in trouble? Well, I overspent here where I shouldn't. So I think it's important. I think budgets are extremely important.
Okay, Martin, you who don't know what a budget is, this is your chance to talk.
Well, I'm just saying, the first idiot who told us what it was going to cost to build that building was off by, I don't know, $750,000. But how would I know? Because I'm not a builder. So you trust the builder to do the sheet, that the site work costs this, the foundation costs this, and so forth, all the way to the turn the key to open the door. You give that to the bank, and the bank says, okay, yeah, we'll approve it. And then you go to a real builder, and they're like, there's no way you can build it for this, right? So even if you try to get a budget, the chances of it being 100% are impossible. But according to this, it's not about building a building. It's about living your life and being able to take care of your family and feed your family and also take care of others.
Yeah, I think the first passage Joel
And
read.
give 10%.
And you 10%!
I think the first.
You ought to.
Yeah, that's right. I think the first part Joel read is relational to the home.
That's what
And
it
the
says.
second part
Yeah.
is the business.
Right, well,
And I do think in the household, like my wife just did today, she says, I'm working on our 2026 budget. So she knows how much money we can spend, how much money we need, how much we can spend. And she'll keep us, believe me, she will keep us in that budget, my wife.
But see, here's the problem.
But that's not a business.
You're trusting your wife. That's
No, what I'm saying is, it's like I can go both the charity and the salon, right? How many times people will say, well, what's the budget for Wigs and Wishes? There is no budget. I can't give you a budget because I don't know what we're going to raise. With someone who owns a business, it's hard to have a budget because you don't, every year is different. And now, if you have a salary and you have a contract and it's consistent, then you can have a really good budget. But one year we could get a $100,000 donation from a large company, and I know that I can, send 10 kids to Disney or whatever. And one year we may not get that. So when you own a business and you run a charity and there's no set secured amount that you're bringing in, it's impossible to have an actual budget.
It was interesting. I had lunch with a business owner,
right?
And budgets can keep
and
you
the
in
business
shape.
owner asked me that question, and I said, well, you're not going to tithe in what the business brings in. You're going to tithe in the business profit if you have one at the end of the year. You should draw a salary or something that you live on and look at that and say, that's what I'm going to tithe on. So if this business owner is pulling, let's say, $1,500 a week to live, he should tithe on that $1,500 a week. And then at the end of the year, if the business has made a profit, he tithes on the profit of the business. That's what I recommend, because that way you don't get yourself in trouble. I just think that's a simple rule. Because if a guy's tithing on his gross on a business, he's liable to take in let's say he takes in $1 million, but he spent $1.5 million. He didn't make anything.
Well, that happens in business.
Yeah.
You have years that are profitable, and you have years that
Your
aren't.
thoughts, Joe?
yeah. Well, you can't manage what you don't measure.
Boom! That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, without data, I don't do stories at all. I don't care who I'm training, if it's the senior business risk analyst at an investment bank or if it's a single mom that does nothing. I don't do stories. Show me the data. If you show me the data, then we can do something with it. We can change the trend, we can do whatever we have to do, but you have to have data. So I believe I agree, I'm an entrepreneur too, and we all know, you can have, people can go from having a $5 million a year to a $50,000 a year. I mean, that happens. I've seen a lot of people, making $40,000 a month go to zero real fast, or, millions going to very little, or vice versa. So I think you have to have a low budget. You have to have some kind of budget so that you have something to aim for and you can develop a trend. I think that's key because you don't know what you're going to make. So whether your budget, you might be making $500,000 a year, and you keep your budget at $200,000 because the next year you might make $800,000, but the year after that you might only make $150,000.
Yeah,
right.
And so you have to have some kind of a foundation.
Look what happened with
that you can
COVID.
build
How many
on.
businesses
Yeah.
shut because they
Right.
didn't have 3 months of reserve.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, well, that's everybody because they're over leveraged on debt. Yeah, well, not everybody, but people that live on
Yeah.
credit. Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing was give the right place. You kind of addressed this, so we'll move on just because our time is going. So, wow, you know what? We're like done. Joel, can you come back and we just talk about wealth building the next time? Can you give us another day?
Golly, you're gonna cost me another day.
Well, we'll pay you.
You ought to. You ought to.
You can't afford me. No, it's yeah, that's fine.
Well,
We'll see when I can.
Yeah.
I don't know when that will be.
Okay, because we're a half hour in already, more than that. People don't watch more than a half hour.
Look, at the end of the day, even people that don't believe in God and they talk about putting it, you get what you put into the universe. Those agnostic people, they're still referencing a tithe. They're still referencing generosity. It's a law. What goes up comes down. You give, it comes back. This is just Basic life fundamental.
Let's do this before we close out. Why don't you just take a moment, tell us what it is you do and what you hope to do when you come back in terms of letting people know how to build wealth for hope in the future. Can you do that?
Fast?
Yeah, and then
Well,
we'll just spend the whole program on it.
I mean, all right, yeah. I do a lot of things. So, I would say the basic of what I do first, when anybody comes to me, is make sure that most people, a lot of people are already in a position where they're financially free, but they don't know it because they don't know how to manage their money. I mean, that's what it boils down to. So all I have to do is look at it and say, if this was me, I would do this, 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 and this. And they make those adjustments, and all of a sudden it frees up a ton of cash flow. They have money to put into, here's the key, to put into assets. I'm going to make it real simple. I'll just touch on the mindset, because I could teach you 100% everything I know. It's not going to help you. All right? But if I teach you the mindset, I really don't have to teach you much. You don't even need me. So, again, money's worthless, and we won't get into that. But when we're talking about financial freedom, all right, money only flows one way. We all come out of the womb as consumers, right? We can't produce anything. We're consuming air, we're consuming our mom's milk, we're consuming everything, right? A lot of people stay that way. That's all they ever stay is as consumers, all right? And that's okay. They can still become financially free, all right? And it doesn't take long, right? I mean, 3 to 5 years, but 10 max. But we all start out as consumers, right? Well, obviously we don't produce everything we need. We don't produce our own, food, all of us, right? Our electric, or everything that it takes to survive. We don't build our own house. We pay people to do all these things. We don't grow our own food. We go to the grocery store. So money flows always. This is why the poor will always be poor. Jesus said it. Poor you will have with you always. Right? And the rich will always be rich, and you can take money away from the rich, and they will make twice as much in half the time. And then you'll take it away again, and they'll make 3 times as much in a third the time. Because it's just the mindset. And poor people, and I mean mentally, I could give them $100 million today, and they will be worse off. 95% of them will be worse off in less than 10 years than if they ever got that money.
And if you don't believe it, look up all the stories of people that won the lottery and are now broke.
Yeah.
Ball players, everything.
It's
a mindset, because this is how money flows. I'm going to give you 2 pointers. Ready? Money flows from the consumer to the business owner, because we have to go buy things at a business that we don't produce for ourselves. And then where does money flow from there? Same place it's always flowed since the beginning of time. The owners, right? Think of who wasn't a slave. You had to be a male landowner. Owners. It always goes to the owner. So it goes from the consumer to the business, right, where you have to buy products and services, and then it flows to the owners. Now, that could be the founders that have owned the company. That could be the people who put up the money for the company. All right? Whoever underwrote it, the investors. But it always goes to the owners. That is why, and the people that understand this, them and their kids and their grandkids own the world. All right, and less than 10% of people own 90% of everything on this planet. All right, and I teach all that, and I trace the money flow and all. But the reason is because they understand money goes from the consumer to the business owner to whoever put up the money, the owner. That's where it's always going to flow. And so the difference between poor people, and I don't mean that, I mean that mentally. All right, poor people, middle class people, and wealthy people is very simple. I could take any 16-year-old kid and make them financially free in a few years. They'll be a millionaire before they're 25, right? If they just understand this principle. They can work at McDonald's, make a minimum wage. A poor person makes $1,000. What do they do with it?
Spend it all.
Right. They spend it, right, to survive. And they're stuck, because if they make any more money, they lose their subsidies and knocks them right back down the ladder, right? They can't get out. So poor people make $1,000 and they spend $1,000. A middle-class person makes $1,000. What do they do with it?
They spend 800 of it.
They spend 80,000 of it because they live on credit. So they now finance their house. They're getting a $250,000 house at 6% interest, and they think that's an investment because they're stupid and don't realize they're paying $810,000 for that house.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Same thing with their car. Same thing with their cell phone. Same thing with their television. Same thing with their furniture. All right. So they're never getting ahead. All right, they're chasing the dragon. The compound interest is working against them, and whose money is it going in? Again, the owners, the people who put up the money. Always flows to the owner. All right, so you got to be an owner. That's the only way to get ahead. So poor people and middle class people complain that food's going up in price, houses are going up in price, gasoline's going up in price. You know who doesn't complain about that? You know who loves hyperinflation? The fact that they print $10 billion a day? Investors. We love it because while real estate has gone up, see, this is what the wealthy do. That 16-year-old kid that thinks like a wealthy person, not the poor person that spends his money, not the middle-class person that lives on credit, but he thinks like a wealthy person. He takes his $1,000 and he buys assets to pay him and go up over time. He will never lose that $1,000. The other two, gone, poof, gone forever. The middle class is going to pay for it forever, right? But that kid, not only does he have his 1,000, but he's getting cash flow, passive income. Now you can get it all tax-free, passive income every month, right? And I hedge it so I can't lose any money. So now he's getting tax-free passive income for the rest of his life off that 1,000, and it's grown into 2 and 5 and 10 and 100. And so everybody else is complaining, oh, the cost of homes have gone up 3,000% since 1980. And the investor says, thank God, because just the S&P alone has gone up 32,000. So I've outperformed that by 1,100%, and not only that, right, 11-fold, but your paychecks every week, every month, every quarter just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's money you don't have to work for. And so that's what pays your bills, that's what pays for your food, that's what fuels your lifestyle, that's financial freedom. And today, because they've taken all the volatility out of the markets and completely destroyed them, because of all the machines, people have found ways to work around that, right, and still be able to generate a lot of yield. So now we can do things we couldn't even do 10 years ago. So we can hedge, we can compound. I got little old ladies, 75 years old that don't do anything but bake a cake, that 10x what the S&P does. When the S&P is at 100% in 7 years, they're over 1,000%. And so just by buying assets that pay you and go up over time, forget about hedging, forget about compounding, forget about any of that, right? That's how you become financially free. It's really that simple. And it could be anything that you're good at. It doesn't have to be the market. It could be the market. It could be real estate. Real estate's slow, and you could be dumb as dirt and still do it. So, you could do real estate, you could do the markets, you could do businesses, buy businesses, whatever. But buy assets that pay you and go up over time. If you take your money and do that for 3 to 5 years, if you get disciplined with it, you'll be financially free.
Yeah.
All right.
That is
Over my head, but anyway.
Well, no, that is really evil globalism. It's controlling people through debt.
And they're slaves.
And what happens is kids getting out of college, they'll get 5 or 6 offers for credit cards. They nail them right then and there. And they basically buy on debt. So they don't own anything.
That's what they're taught to do. The
Right.
government does that on purpose.
And the
They're slaves to the
That's
system.
what they do. That's how you control people.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of globalism, liberalism.
Yeah, socialism and
Socialism.
communism. It's
So
the
if
same
somebody's
thing.
watching and wants to invest $1,000, what would you tell them to invest in?
Gold or silver.
Whatever they want.
Gold, silver right now.
As long as, you'd have to know the right products to choose. But there's so many. You could be Bitcoin. You could. I get at least minimum 5.8% a month off Bitcoin. Tax-free passive income. So, and that's all I hedge. So, you could be in Bitcoin, you could be in Ethereum, you could be in the S&P, you could be in the NASDAQ, you could be in any company. I think Palantir pays me like 7.5%.
I'm getting 43%.
I'm
getting
getting
43% of
Yeah.
that.
And I get weekly paychecks from it too.
Yeah.
And so it's, that's what I'm saying. Guys had to find ways to create money in the market because they took all the volatility out of the market. They put breakers in, and every time people start selling, they shut it down, and they widen the spread so nobody could trade, and they increase the margin and the interest and everything else.
I bought some silver.
Well, that's your
So there's ways to,
Yeah.
but so anyway, there's ways to do it now that they've made other ways to make money, and the whole game has changed the last few years since everything's been computerized and the market makers walk off. So all you got to do is buy what you're interested in. If you just buy what you like and you're interested in, and I have a kid, he did $10, he started with 10, but they went to $15 a day, right? So for 8 years and 7 months, he did nothing to put his money in Bitcoin at $15 a day. I don't know what I have it in one of my presentations the last time I did it. I can't remember what it is because I deal with so many numbers. But it's hundreds of thousands of dollars now And he's like 22 years old. He did it for a brother's custodial account. When he started, he couldn't even open an account. And if you're just disciplined and consistent, you know, same with my dad. You know, mom. What's it? 47 years you did at the church, and 7 years before that, right? Down in Pleasantville.
We didn't make a lot of money.
And they never made much money. And I remember when I was growing up, and everything he built, and my friends thought, you know, we were so wealthy, and all the celebrities and all, which is that part, yeah. But they thought we were so wealthy, and they didn't realize he's still paying himself like $40,000. You know, and everybody else thinks he's making $1 million a year or whatever, and because it wasn't about that. But my mom, you know, bless her heart, she'd wear the same dress every other week to church and all that stuff. Remember to stay smart? And so, you know, she would take just a little bit of money, because as a pastor, then you didn't have to pay into Social Security. So whatever that was each week, $15 or whatever, and that would have come out of the check, she just put that away. And she just did that all those years. And if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have had anything to even work with at this point, to where now they're fine and they don't have to.
Joel's our retirement plan.
We better close it out.
They make way more now than they did when they were working. But the point is, just be disciplined and consistent. That's all. Just like showing the work every day.
People have to be careful with all these, you know, invest in this, invest in that. Tomorrow it's going to go up 30%. I mean,
no.
3 years ago.
No, that's gambling.
Yeah, three years ago, I bought silver at like $25 an ounce. You know, and gold and silver are a commodity that increases when there's instability.
Yeah.
And now it's doubled. It's
Well,
almost
you
$60.
know where you messed up? If you have to be right on direction to make money, you're just a gambler.
Oh, that's a gamble right
Yeah.
there.
Well, let's move on.
I have something that when the whole world collapses and there's no more money, I have.
Well, if we get nuked, I ain't worried about money. Let me tell you. I don't care about money now.
Gold and silver is always.
We'll have bigger issues.
I'm going to go buy a scratch-off ticket on that note.
That's right. Get that
I did join jackpot.com.
One person in Arizona, right, 1.8 billion took the payout, was 400 and some million. After taxes, it was down to 300 and some
Oh, that's
million.
disgusting.
Almost, it's
Everybody,
insanity.
federal, state, county.
I mean, they all are the winner. The owner who started the lottery. All right.
They are a completely corrupt criminal organization.
Okay, let's move on.
Let's move on and close. Well, if you'd like a copy of today's script, which I doubt you do, you can send a message to Pastor Bruce. Don't forget, on our website, Hijacked Life Live, we have 3 books: Hope Beyond Suicide, When Divorce is Right, Love, Lust, and Lies. We also have 3 t-shirts. One says, "Why are you telling me that?" The back says, "Stop gossiping." My favorite one says, "Make life count." The back says, "Stop bitching, start blessing." And then we have our
Joel shirt.
proclamation, which we'll all give you together, which is the shirt Joel's wearing. The front says, 1, 2, 3. Live for Jesus, and even a bad day will be a good day. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year. Love you guys.
Somebody go hit
See you
that.
next week.
Where's the button?
Bottom right corner.
Where's my pepper?